Well, folks, good evening. Thank you for being here this evening. I'd like to thank the library for having the forum. I mean, I think these are very informative and beneficial for voters out there trying to figure out how they're going to support this November. Let me cut to the chase since I'm limited to 3 minutes. Based on what I'm hearing from voters in the 3rd District, as I go door to door talking with constituents, this election is shaping up to be a referendum on Sam Brownback's tax policies that he pushed through the Kansas legislature back in 2012. At that time, Governor Brownback talked about a lost decade, noting that there were fewer private sector jobs in Kansas in 2010 than in 2000. The governor contended with the proper tax policies in place, the Kansas economy once again become revitalized and grow. The governor proclaimed his so-called grand experiment would be a shot at the general heart of the Kansas economy. What we saw the legislature subsequently do was pass a $745 million income tax cut, representing about 12% of the state general fund revenue. Well, we've heard of Paul Harvey, the radio announcer, and as Paul Harvey used to say, now for the rest of the story. We know that, in fact, there wasn't a shot in the drill of the Kansas economy. In fact, no material economic stimulus ever resulted from those tax cuts. We also know that over 330,000 so-called small business income tax filers are no longer paying Kansas income taxes in tax year 2012, and that number continues to grow each year. Not surprisingly, unending budget deficits have been the story ever since. The $750 million revenue deficit shortfall was estimated right after Governor Brownback's re-election in 2014. So how have the governor and his legislative allies addressed the massive deficits? Well, we've seen over $2 billion of state highway fund money diverted to pay for services. In effect, the 2010 Comprehensive Transportation Program has been effectively gutted. K-12 school funding was first cut and later frozen with the governor's school block grant funding scheme. These block grants, of course, were unconstitutional. We've seen higher education funding slashed. We've seen social service and public safety programs slashed. State has deferred its CAPER's employer contribution responsibilities. We also saw the governor's allies pass the largest sales tax increase ever in the state of Kansas during the 2015 session. And now, as a result of that, we have some Kansas communities paying the highest food sales tax rates in the nation. And yet, our state continues to flounder. To the last 12 monthly revenue estimates have been missed. Just in this current fiscal year, we're $62 million short for the current fiscal year. And we heard just last week, no doubt to shield the governor from political embarrassment, his own task force, his working group, the revenue estimating group, basically recommended the public no longer be given the monthly actual versus estimate revenue comparisons. So despite the governor's claims that the sun is shining in Kansas, we know it isn't. The governor's grand experiment has failed, and the voters are not happy. July public opinion polls show Governor Brownback having the lowest approval rating of any governor in the nation, 15%, and we've seen the political fallout. 8 of the governor's allies in the Senate, they've seen the proverbial handwriting on the wall. They resigned before they even got to the primaries. We saw another 6 of the governor's allies defeated in the Senate primaries themselves. So folks, the results are in. The state is broke and cannot deliver core services as a result of Governor Brownback's tax policies. Kansas voters know this. I asked voters in the 3rd Senate District to learn about the candidates' positions on Governor Brownback's policies and make their own determination as to who they think best can restore fiscal sanity to our state. I thank you for being here this evening, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. You want to stand up here too?
Yeah, might as well.
All right.
Well, I won't be that wordy. I do thank you for coming this evening. Thank you for hosting. I'm Echo Van Meteren, and unlike what my opponent likes to suggest, I am not anyone's flunky, groupie, or property. My opponent likes to say he's calling for a referendum on Sam Brownback. Well, if you're as frustrated with career politicians as I am, I say that we should call for a referendum on politicians that have had their butts sitting in a state house chair for 13 years and want to point their fingers at everyone else like they haven't had anything to do with what is going on in Topeka. We've had these issues for decades, and these politicians keep on kicking it down the road to the next generation. It is time for that to stop. If you're ready for a change and someone who's willing to make progress, I appreciate your support, and I'm looking forward to our conversation this evening.
Thank you.